Hello, algebra classes. We're going to take a look at our samples for lesson 9.5a. We're going to solve each quadratic equation by completing the square. Now we need to take note that there could be other ways to solve the equations that we are going to be solving today. However, the requirement is that you use the technique of completing the square to arrive at your answer. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with x squared plus 8x equals 20. We're going to solve that equation. We're going to find two values for x. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up a box on both sides of the equation. First, there's going to be nothing in that box. We're going to figure out what goes in that box in a minute. It's going to be the same thing. Of course, we have to add or subtract the same thing to both sides of our equation to keep it true. All right, to figure out what goes in the box, we're going to take the coefficient on the x term and we're going to divide it by 2. That gives us a positive 4. We're going to square that 4 to get 16. So we're going to put 16 in both of those boxes on both sides of the equation so that we know what we're doing is true and valid. Then we're going to simplify here. So we're going to rewrite this perfect square trinomial that we just built as the square of a binomial. We're going to pull that plus 4 right into the parentheses that we're squaring. And then over here, 20 plus 16 is 36. Then we take the square root of both sides. That will leave us with x plus 4 equals positive or negative 6, since the square root of 36 is 6. Then we subtract 4 on both sides, and we'll have x equals negative 4 plus or minus 6. Then we're going to pull this apart, of course, into the two expressions it means. It means x is equal to negative 4 plus 6. It also means negative 4 minus 6. And then we'll work out both of those values. 2, negative 4 plus 6 is 2. Negative 4 minus 6 is negative 10. And then we have the two values of x, and we arrived at those solutions by completing the square. So x is 2 or negative 10. Our last sample will work very similarly to sample 1. The only thing that's really different on this one that I want to make sure we practice this when we have a negative coefficient on our x term. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up a box on both sides of our equation. And I'm going to go ahead and put a box around our 25 because I am adding that to both sides. To figure out what goes in each of those boxes, we're going to take the coefficient on that x term and we're going to divide it by 2. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. Negative 5 squared is 25, and that's what we're adding to both sides of our equation here. And then we're going to rewrite this perfect square trinomial as x minus 5 quantity squared. So we're bringing that minus 5 down. That's why it's so important that you note what the sign is on that number, so we bring the correct number down into the parentheses when we're rewriting the perfect square trinomial as the square of a binomial. Since negative 24 plus 25 is 1, we now have x minus 5 squared is equal to 1. Take the square root of both sides. We'll get x minus 5 is equal to positive or negative 1 because the square root of 1 is 1. And then add 5 to both sides. We'll have x is equal to 5 plus 1, or x is equal to 5 minus 1. And here I've broken it apart into those two pieces. And since 5 plus 1 is 6 and 5 minus 1 is 4, our final result will be x is equal to 6 or 4. And we'll use the technique of completing the square to arrive at our solution. And that's all for our samples on lesson 9.5a. Please make sure these are in your notes attached to your lesson work. And when you're ready, please proceed on to the quiz for 9.5a. We'll see you next time.